We've had some questions coming in on social media, and so I thought we should go through them and get some answers out to our customers. This is Dick Zondag, the garden doctor, and we had a question come in on social media about how to protect strawberries that are planted in a raised bed. The problem with raised beds is that the cold temperatures are not only coming in from the top, but they are surrounding the soil on all four sides, and so that soil tends to freeze much harder, and the roots of a plant are probably 20 to 30 degrees more injured by cold weather than the tops are. And so if you've got them in a raised bed, what you've got to do is protect the four sides that are exposed on the sides, and you can do that by either putting hay or straw around them, by covering the whole bed with a roll cover type material. The other thing, when you're building a raised bed, if you want to protect them, you can put styrofoam on the inside of the bed so that the cold doesn't penetrate the soil as easily as it is if there's no protection there. So put some kind of a mulch around the bed so that the cold can't penetrate the sides from the sides, and your strawberries will do really well. I use roll cover on my strawberries, both the ones I have in the ground and the ones I have in the raised beds. Question has come in on how to winterize your roses in Zone 5 or in Wisconsin, and it's generally the same. Roses, especially the hybrid teas, grandifloras and floribundas, do need winter protection to ensure that they will make it through the winter. One of the ways that some people do it is with rose cones, the styrofoam rose cones, and what they do is they gather up the branches with baling twine or some kind of rope and then cut them back so that the rose cone fits over the rose, and then they put soil around the bottom. And it's really important to do that because those rose cones have a perfect environment for rodents to overwinter also. And if you get one in that rose cone, your rose will be completely debarked. So how do you use the rose cone? You cut the roses back so that the rose cone fits over with the rose, and then you do not poke holes in the rose. The reason that you have a styrofoam rose cone is that you want to moderate the highs and lows, and if you poke a hole in the rose cone, you're going to let either the cold or the warm air in. So it's best to have the cones unpunctured. And you always also put something heavy on the rose cone, because the first year that I used rose cones way back quite a while ago, I chased them around the neighborhood because they tend to blow away if they're not weighted down. The other thing you got to remember is that you have to put something around the base of the rose cone to make sure that there's no entry for the rodents. And so you can use the soil that's around the plant, or you can put wood shavings or whatever. With my roses, what I do is I use a rose collar, and what this is it's a sheet of plastic that has a couple of fasteners, and they fasten the plastic together to make a cylinder. And then you do the same thing. You pull the stems together, you put this down around, and then you fill this with whatever media you've got around the rose. And so if you've got a mulch of some sort or other, that would work, or soil or pine bark or whatever you've got. And the reason this works is because it moderates the area around the graft union and keeps the freezing and thawing from happening in the wintertime, and you'll have really great luck with overwintering the roses with that. But the cones also work. Another question came in online about what kind of roses that you can have in Zone 4 without winter protection. And many of the shrub roses, the knockout roses and Some of those types of roses will do really well in our area. I've had some of the original knockouts many, many years ago, and they lasted almost 25 years before they succumbed to the winters. But in order to ensure that they come through the first winter while they're established, and even if you plant them in the springtime, it's a good idea to put a little bit of soil around the base of the plant so that you at least protect the area between the ground and where the rose is grafted. After the first year of protection, then those hardy shrub roses should be perfectly fine without any winter protection. Another good thing to do or not to do in the late summer and early fall with roses is prune them or water them or fertilize them, because what happens then is that plant doesn't know that winter is coming, and it usually perceives it by the days getting shorter and the nights getting longer. But if you overstimulate the rose by watering, fertilizing, or pruning too much, that rose will tend to go back into its growing stage. And if you disrupt that quiescent period while the rose is starting to pull the nutrients and things back out of the leaves and getting ready for winter, if you interrupt that quiescent period by pruning, watering, or fertilizing, the rose may not make it through the winter. So first off, don't stimulate the rose in the fall, and then the rose should make it through the winter perfectly fine if it's a shrub rose. Another question came in on social media about how do you prune fruit trees or peach trees. Now, peach trees tend to be very vigorous growers, and so what you basically want to do is to get a tree that has very horizontal branching, so that if you get a heavy load of fruit, it doesn't break the tree in the crotch. So the first thing you want to do is get horizontal branching, even to the point where if the branches are coming out at a very acute angle, where the angle is very small between the trunk and the branch, you can actually put a piece of twine or a spacer in there to push it down, or you could actually pull it down for the summer. And usually if you do that for a summer, that branch will be more horizontal. You also want to take some of the fine twigs out of the plant, because the plants tend to fruit on the heavier wood. So thin the fine wood out, get that horizontal branching, and in a nutshell, that's kind of what you do. Again, you don't do any pruning in early or mid fall. You do your pruning when the tree is dormant, so late fall, around Thanksgiving time, or any time from then until when the tree starts growing in the springtime. Another question has come in online. This is Dick Zondag, the garden doctor, and they want to know how they control Japanese beetles, because they do become a problem midsummer through the fall. One of the ways that you can do that is by using Japanese beetle traps that have the attractant in them, and what you do is you place that attractant trap away from where the beetles are, because you don't want to attract them into your plants. And so 25 to 50 feet away, that attractant will pull the beetles from your plants into that trap. And once the bag is full, you can either throw it in the garbage and put another bag on, or you can empty the beetles out and bury them. You can also spray for them, but the sprays are only effective for the ones that are on the plant at the time. The beetle overwinter as a larva in the soil, and if you want to control them in your yard, we do have a product called milky spore, which you put on the lawn. And what happens with the milky spore is that the larvae of the Japanese beetle ingest that, and it paralyzes their digestive tract, so it kills the larvae. The only problem with that is it's expensive to start with, and the Japanese beetles can fly in from your neighbor's lawns, and so even if you control them in your lawn, you're probably going to have problems with them because they'll come from your neighbor's lawn. But the Japanese beetle traps work really, really good. I use them in my own yard, and they do attract beetles out of your berries or your vegetable garden.